Hi, Martin Logan from Erlware here, and welcome to the Quick Start. Today I'm going to go through a basic development cycle with you. What that's going to involve is pulling down Faxien, our package manager, using Faxien to subsequently install Sinan, our build system. From there we are going to generate a project with Sinan. We are going to do a little development within that project. We're going to test it, document it, and basically do all the things that we would do in day-to-day development. Once we have that project running, we're going to create some artifacts out of that project, and then we're going to use Faxien to publish those artifacts out so that other people can install and run our software or use our software as dependencies in their own projects. And with that, let's get started. First thing we want to do is go to erlware.org, which is where I am right now. I'm going to click on the downloads link, which is going to take us to the downloads page. The downloads page basically features one link. That link is to the Universal Launcher. The Universal Launcher is something Dave Pedicola, one of our core developers, wrote, and what it'll do is figure out what architecture your local system is, and then it's going to pull down the appropriate Faxien bootstrapper for you. So let's get that downloaded, and boom, I've got it. Now over here I've created a directory called Quick Start, and in Quick Start I've got the Faxien Universal Launcher. I can launch this in one of two ways. I can either make it executable, or I can realize that this is written in Python and simply invoke the Python interpreter as such. Now there's two options I can do right now. I can choose from right now. I can either hit enter, and what the Universal Launcher will do is pull down the bootstrapper and then install Faxien into user local Erlware. Or I can enter a prefix which will install Faxien into a location of my choice. I'm going to use the prefix option. Current directory /Erlware is where I'm going to put this. So let's hit enter. Now what it's doing is it's pulling down the Faxien launcher for my local system, which happens to be a Macintosh, and it's asking me a question: do I want to run the bootstrapper now? Yes. So here we go, Faxien is now installed, and now what we're doing is checking for any upgrades of Faxien. Let's scroll back up and go over that a little bit more slowly. So, first thing it did was install Faxien. After that, it checked for any upgrades of Faxien, and it found one. So the bootstrapper version, 29.6.2, happens to be a slightly older version. We're right now, at the time of this recording, at 29.8.0. So it recognized that and initiated the install for that particular version, pulled down the two packages that were different for that particular release, and installed it. If we scroll down further, we notice that Faxien has recognized that there are differences between the config file for the old version of Faxien and the new version of Faxien. And at the bottom it asks us a question. It says, there are differences between the latest config and the past Faxien config. Do you want to use the old or the new configuration file? We can type we can type O for old, or we can type N for new. Let's go ahead and use the new version. It says OK, and now Faxien is completely installed. If I run ls, I can see that I've got the launcher, I've got the bootstrapper itself for my particular platform, and now I've got an Erlware directory. If I cd into Erlware and run ls, I've got a few things. Let's not worry about anything except the bin directory. In the bin directory, I've got the Faxien executable, and that's all I need to know right now. So back into our Erlware directory, if I run Erlware bin Faxien version, it's going to tell me that I'm running 0.29.8.0. Now I ran Erlware bin Faxien and then a command. It would make sense for you to put that into your path. Add Erlware bin into your path in whatever manner you're going to do that for your local operating system. As we just saw, version is one Faxien command. Faxien does feature quite a number of other commands. In order to start exploring those, a good place to begin would be with Faxien help. So Erlware bin Faxien, and then type help. And it's going to give us a number of suggestions. And we can see right here that Faxien help commands will give us a list of all the Faxien commands. And Faxien help followed by a command name will give us some individual help, or will give us help for a particular command. So let's go ahead and run Faxien help commands. Wow, we get quite a few. Let's pipe that into less, since we are on a Unix system. Okay, here we go. And this brings us to the command we are going to use next. Faxien install release. This is going to install a release package for us. Now, next thing I want to do is install Sinan. Sinan is our build system. Sinan is what we call a release. Now it's important to recognize that there are two fundamental package types within Erlware, within Erlang OTP itself. There are OTP releases and OTP applications. An application is just code. It doesn't run. It contains an ebin, a source directory, a .app file, and some source code. It is used as a dependency of the higher level, more meta package called a release. A release is a specification that says we're going to use a particular version of the Erlang runtime system. We're going to pull together a number of different applications as dependencies. We're going to combine those things with some configuration and a startup script in order to create something that's actually runnable, that's a standalone Erlang service that you'll see as a process on your operating system. So let's go ahead and pull down the second release we're going to get familiar with, which is Sinan. In order to pull down and install a release with Faxien, we're going to say Faxien install release, as opposed to install app, install release Sinan, and hit enter. Now here we go. We're initiating the install for the remote release Sinan 0.10.0.12. And you can see that we're pulling down all of the applications that Sinan is going to need to run. Well, all the applications that aren't currently already installed. So here we go. We've got URI, we've got query, we've got syntax tools, we've got the compiler itself, edoc, the tools application, hype, GS. There's going to be a whole number of applications that are dependencies that are needed in order to stand up a Sinan service. A Sinan, in order to stand up an emulator, or not an emulator, but a runtime system that embodies Sinan. So here we've pulled down all of the applications, all of the dependencies required to fire up Sinan. And if we were to do an ls of Erlware bin, we now see that we have Sinan in that bin directory. Alright, now that we have the Sinan release down, let's get started with our development. First thing that we're going to do is use the Sinan generate function. So under Erlware bin Sinan, I'm going to give it the gen command, and this is going to generate a project for us. This project will give us a structure that we can start developing Erlang OTP applications and releases with. So specify my name, Martin Logan, specify my email address, specify the copyright holder, Erlware, specify the location of repositories. These are the repositories that we are going to pull our dependencies from. So if we depend on GAS or iBrowse or kernel or standard lib or any of a host of other applications out there, this is where we're going to find them. We're not going to enter another one for the purpose of this demo. Let's specify the name of our project. Let's call it Hello Erlware. The version of our project, 0100, is fine. Now let's specify the names of the OTP applications that belong to this project. Hello Erlware. Actually, you know what, for the purposes of differentiation, let's call the application Hello. This application is going to be the application we are developing. So we will develop the Hello application. The Hello application may itself have a number of dependencies on things like kernel, standard lib, GAS, SASL, you name it. There could be any number of things that Hello itself depends upon. But under this project, we are going to be developing only one application. Once we build the application, or we run and we build the project, we can then use Sinan itself to create a release. And that release will contain the application that we're developing on, Hello, as well as all the dependencies that are specified in Hello. It will pull those all together and then create a full release that we can subsequently stand up and run. So now we've created the Hello application. Would we like to enter more? No, we're going to develop one application in this project. We hit enter, and now we can see that we have created ourselves a Sinan project. Let's go and see what's in that project. Okay, so in my current directory, let's get rid of the Erl crash dump from earlier. In my project directory, I've got Erlware. In my quick start directory, I now have the Hello Erlware directory. This is my project. Hello Erlware will also be the name of any releases that we create subsequently. At least that'll be the case by default. Under this project, we've got three artifacts. We've got build CFG, we've got a doc directory, and a lib directory. Build CFG is the configuration for this project. Let's go over it quickly. Build CFG contains a project specification, the name of the project, Hello Erlware, also the name of, by default, of any subsequent releases we create with Sinan using this project, and the version of the project, 0.1.0.0. I also have the repository specification. Again, I can have as many repositories as I would like in here. We, for the purposes of this demo, will only have one. And the following config is not anything that you really need to worry about right now. Additional configuration can be specified here, but that's really the topic of a more advanced tutorial. The doc directory is fairly self-explanatory. Now let's go into the lib directory. The lib directory is key. Here we find one thing, a directory called Hello. Had we specified more applications to develop during our generate process, we would find more than one directory here. Let's go into our Hello application. Hello contains doc, ebin, include, and source. Doc is self-explanatory. Ebin is where our application specification file is placed. So let's go into ebin. View hello.app. This is a very important file. This tells the system what our application is all about. Starts out with a tuple application, followed by a starts out with an atom application, followed by a tuple representing or embodying the name of our project or of our application. Then we have a list of tuples. Description. Description is important because people are going to search for your app using Faxien or on the web itself, and they're going to find it via this description, at least in part. So let's say a first crack at developing with Erlware. That's our description. Version 0.1.0 is fine. Modules, Hello App, and Hello Sub. When we go into the source directory, you'll see that Sinan Jen has created the hello_app and the hello_sub files for us. Hello_app is the file embodying the application behavior. Hello_sup embodies the supervisor behavior and will function as a top-level supervisor for our project. If this project were to be a library application and didn't require application or supervision behaviors, we would simply get rid of these within this file and then delete the files in the source directory. 90% of your apps are going to feature these files, though. We have one registered name, hello sup. We've got two dependencies, kernel and standard lib. Let's go ahead and add a few more dependencies. I want to use GAS so that I can handle configuration And I'm also going to use that to add some logging, rotation, and truncation. I could add eyebrows here. I could add, let's say I want to do some JSON parsing. I could add K20 for JSON parsing. Sassel, if I wanted to use the Sassel libraries. There's a whole host of things I could use out there. Basically, all I have to do is eUnit. All I have to do is specify them here, and they're going to be pulled down for me. This application, I'm just going to include JS. Furthermore, it's definitely worth mentioning that, let's say GAS depends on a number of other things like XML or syntax tools or who knows what else. All I need to do is specify GAS here, and Sinan will discover that GAS depends on other things, and it's going to create a full dependency tree and pull down those other dependencies for me. So I don't have to specify all the dependencies of every app that I include within this application's tuple. Sinan's going to take care of that for me. Next is the mod tuple. The mod tuple is a specification that tells the OTP release handler how to start your application. In this case, hello app is our application behavior. That means that it exports a function, start, which takes 2 arguments. The mod tuple is telling the release handler that it needs to call that in order to start our application. If our application was just a library application and never needed to be started, we would simply get rid of the mod tuple. And start phases we will leave for your own advanced study. Let's jump into the source directory. Under source, as promised, we have the hello_app.rl file and the hello_sup.rl file.